What would you do if you found a dying ember in the middle of a freezing wet forest? In this video, I'm simulating exactly what it's like to find, raise, and train a real-life Charmander, from a tiny, helpless baby fighting for its life to an absolute fire-breathing alpha god. This is our story.
It was a freezing morning at my campsite. I reached for my hiking boot, expecting it to be ice cold, but instead, I saw a faint, warm orange glow. I slowly lifted the boot, and my heart stopped. Tumbling out onto my sleeping bag, covered in gray ash, was a tiny, newborn Charmander. He fit perfectly in the palm of my hand. He was so fragile, but more terrifyingly, the flame on his tail was barely a glowing ember. If that flame goes out, he dies. I gently wiped the soot off his face. He looked up at me with these massive, innocent eyes, desperate for warmth. I quickly wrapped him in my thickest scarf and rushed to the car. He was shivering violently, but as I fed him a tiny piece of a sweet berry, I saw the flame on his tail spark just a little bit brighter. He was going to make it.
Taking care of a baby fire lizard comes with unique challenges. Washing him in a small bowl while trying to keep his tail above the soapy water was a high-stakes balancing act. But wrapping him in a warm yellow towel afterwards? Pure serotonin. I made him a cozy nest. He'd clumsily bat at plush toys, tiny sparks popping from his tail like miniature fireworks. They grow up fast. Soon, he was a toddler, eating kibble like a vacuum cleaner. We'd play with a tennis ball on the rug, and he'd pounce on it like a little tiger. But with energy comes fire. One day, he sneezed and instantly set the morning newspaper on fire. I had to rush in with a mug of water while he just sat there with a tiny puff of smoke coming out of his nose. He had no idea what he just did. I'd scratch his chin, and he'd close his eyes in pure bliss. We were inseparable. Even outside, he clung to my arm under an umbrella, terrified of the rain. We practiced his fire control, but note to self, do not let a toddler Charmander roast your marshmallow. He completely incinerated it. Still, the quiet moments were the best. He'd fall asleep right on my chest, his tail acting as my personal reading lamp. But I knew he needed an outlet for his energy, so I put on a thick firefighter glove and combat training began.
Months passed. He wasn't a baby anymore. He was knee-high, a teenager. His appetite doubled, and his tail flame roared with a steady, intense heat. The training got serious. I used heavy, charred wooden boards to test his flamethrower. Playing tug-of-war with a thick jute rope felt like trying to pull a truck. I'd brush his growing scales, and late at night, watching TV, his tail cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. He was my best friend. And then he hit his final stage. He didn't just grow, he evolved into an absolute titan, an alpha. I could barely lift the heavy metal bucket of raw meat it took to feed him. His scales became thick, battle-scarred armor. When we trained, I had to wear heavy fireproof strike pads. His flaming fists hit with the force of a wrecking ball. The shockwaves literally shook my camera. Having an alpha Charmander completely changes your life. We went hiking in a freezing blizzard, and he didn't even care. His massive tail flame acted like a blast furnace, melting the deep snow, clearing a path for me. I tied a massive black bandana around his thick neck, and he'd still lower his giant head just so I could pet him. At night in the forest, I didn't need a campfire. He was the campfire. He became incredibly useful. Need to boil water? He breathes a pinpoint laser of fire. Need to clear a canyon? He charges a blinding, white-hot sphere of plasma. Grooming him now meant using a heavy industrial wire brush. We upgraded our game of fetch to massive, scorched car tires. He'd launch himself like a rocket. I got him a heavy-duty steel training collar. When that buckle snapped shut, he knew it was time for war. In the underground arenas, he was a force of nature. If he took a hit, I'd spray his scarred shoulders with glowing medicine. He never backed down.
But the world is a dangerous place. When glowing red eyes appeared in a dark cave, he stepped in front of me, roaring so loud the stalactites shook. His tail flared up like a beacon. Yet, he was incredibly precise. He could use his razor-sharp claw to delicately slice a sewing thread for me. We started doing extreme sports. Riding on his back across the savannah, he'd pull stuck jeeps out of deep mud with heavy steel chains. He helped me forge steel in the blacksmith shop. I'd throw concrete cinder blocks into the air, and he'd shatter them into dust with a spinning tail whip. Before tournaments, I'd paint black war stripes across his massive snout. We explored volcanic caves where his fire blended with actual magma. We sliced watermelons in midair. He'd carry me on his back, leaping over collapsed highway bridges. I stood behind a police riot shield while he unleashed a full-power blast just to test it. We welded broken car parts. We went ice fishing, his body heat keeping the hole from freezing. He pushed massive fallen trees out of the road, and on the edge of the mountains, he unleashed a colossal tornado of fire into the stars. During a devastating earthquake, he effortlessly lifted a reinforced concrete slab to clear a path. After intense workouts, I cooled him down with an actual fire hose, the water turning into massive clouds of boiling steam. He ate crates of the spiciest chili peppers like candy. I used an angle grinder just to file down his claws, sending blinding sparks everywhere. But my favorite moments were the quiet ones. During a severe thunderstorm, his massive body acted like a living umbrella, keeping me completely dry. Every morning, his giant head would rest on the kitchen table, asking for a scratch. I strapped dark metal armor to his shoulders. We looked out over ruined cyberpunk cities. We pushed granite boulders across fields. He melted frozen bunker doors in seconds. I'd try to arm wrestle him, veins popping, while he was literally
asking for a scratch. I strapped dark metal armor to his shoulders. We looked out over ruined cyberpunk cities. We pushed granite boulders across fields. He melted frozen bunker doors in seconds. I'd try to arm wrestle him, veins popping, while he was literally an immovable object. I had to clean his giant fangs with a scrub brush. If a massive rock was thrown at us, he'd shatter it with his tail before I could even blink.